Welcome into the roundtable. I'm Brad Wakai. That is my co-host Tyson Gentry. We got a lot to discuss today, Tyson, because I don't know if people out there have heard, but we're coming out of the bunker because all we did was watch March Madness this weekend, and as I'm sure many people across the country did as well.
Oh, it's fantastic. You get 90 hours straight in front of and I mean, we're at work, but we're not really working. They got the boss button and all that stuff on the website. It was perfect. Although, fix it. Like, make it look not like I'm actively trying to hide something. Make it look like I'm doing something at least. Can we get an Excel spreadsheet or something?
Yeah, exactly. Just pull up some fake numbers and just like something that you can
Yeah.
operate with or something like that.
It was like a chat AI bot was the thing this week. And like my boss doesn't know his way around a computer, so I was okay. But anybody else, I think they're like, "What the hell you got going on?"
Yeah, so we got to react to the NCAA tournament. Basically, the rundown for the week. We're going to do our early reactions here. We will also do another episode of the draft dive. Don't forget, we got the draft coming up soon for the NFL junkies out there. So we are continuing to chug through that. And then later this week, we are going to be previewing the Sweet 16 and the Elite Eight. If you are watching us on YouTube, please like the channel, like the episode. That helps us climb the rankings there, become more discoverable. If you're listening to us on the podcast, send us a 5-star review or just review it because it helps us climb the charts as well. So we really appreciate that. But Tyson, let's just dive right into it, man. The reaction here, because I mean, people were saying this is going to be a crazy tournament. Didn't seem like there were truly elite teams at the top. Feels like the cream of the crop or like the bottom of the barrel has been rising, and there's been more of like a middle class in college basketball. And I think you saw that in this tournament so far.
This is the exact argument against expanding the tournament was what happened in the first and second round over the last couple of days. If the tournament's bigger, then FDU plays. Who knows? They might play FAU round one instead of getting a chance to play Purdue, knocking them off in an all-time biggest upset in the history of college sports. Like I don't even know if you can. UMBC was massive because that was the first one. They were a better team, and they won by 20. Right after you came out there, 6'3", a bunch of guys that, and I don't mean this disrespectfully, but you could find them playing at your local YMCA. Like, there's not a pro player overseas or otherwise on that roster at the moment. Those are the dudes killing you in pickup, and they just showed up and beat National Player of the Year in a program that was number one for the better part of the season in Purdue. Like they'd hold the ranking, lose right away, but they were won multiple times throughout the year. And FDU just showed up, kicked the door down, and kind of stole Princeton's thunder, who went to the Sweet 16 as a 15 seed. They made FAU into villains, which was something I was not expecting. Although, who tries that dunk, dude? What the fuck was that?
It was a little bush league, I will say.
And he missed.
And he missed. I think it was better that he missed, though, because I think if he dunked, everyone like, dude, really?
Well, the flip side of that is, like, I thought that was whack when he did it. I also loved when they called timeout FDU did with 0.7 seconds left just to let Purdue sit in the loss for another 30 seconds there. So it's 50-50, but don't fuck with Jersey, basically. Don't fuck with small Jersey schools because they will come and get you when it comes to March.
Princeton doing it, St. Peter's last year, and FDU with the biggest upset in the tournament's history. Going through this bracket here, and I have one that's filled out. Just like so I could visually look at it as we're going through this. I mean, let's be honest here. Kansas lost to Arkansas. I'm going to say this. If they didn't have the officiating in that game was so pro Kansas. It was insane.
Yeah.
Like people, I'm looking through my timeline on Twitter. They're like, I backed Kansas. This is bad. And they still lost the game to Arkansas. And we said it, Tyson. They were a vulnerable 1 seed, we thought. I mean, Bill Self not coaching, that obviously hurts. We hope he continues to get healthy in his recovery there. But that was clearly, going from your lead assistant who's now got to step over 1 seat. That's going to change things. And Arkansas and Musselman, dude, that's what they do.
Our whole dialogue on Kansas, I said this team's either winning the national championship or getting bounced in the first weekend. And you said this team's not winning the national championship. So we landed on this team getting bounced in the first weekend. Man, Musselman in March this guy is approaching. Obviously, no one will ever get to Izzo levels, but it's like you don't want to see. And you don't want to see Jim Larinaga either. No, I don't want to let him get lost because he's my boy, not yours. So don't start claiming now. But when you see Musselman in March, dude, like you better duck because it's just a bunch of freak athletes. The SEC showed up with a bunch of football teams, and they're kicking the shit out of all these pretty boy 5-star recruits and all that stuff. I mean, the SEC is carrying the tournament right now.
100%. I think so. If we want to move in the biggest storylines, it's kind of the similar here. I mean, once again, Big Ten, bad year. ACC coming in. We knew they were down conference, and they showed it again. Miami, the only team left from the ACC. The only team left out of the Big Ten, Michigan State. They had, I believe, 7 teams in here. It's just the Big Ten is not built to win tournament games. And I think I have a theory on. I don't think their guards are good enough. I think they all kind of load up in the conference play to kind of like beat each other, where you have these guys who aren't the most skilled, can kind of bang and handle the physicality of the conference play. And then you get out when everything's spaced out and the guard plays better, and they just can't handle it. The guards blow right past the Big Ten guards. And then the big guys who are littered on these Big Ten teams, they just can't keep up. They get put in pick and roll, they get isolated, and their strengths in Big Ten conference play is clearly the weakness as we go through the NCAA tournament. And of course, it's, Izzo holding the water for the conference, beating Marquette, who was red hot coming in, and Michigan State just punked them, man. They just took it to them.
I think any team in the tournament might have been able to beat Marquette yesterday. They
looked horrible yesterday.
That was the worst that they've looked in quite a while. But on the Big Ten, like, it's the same thing as it's always been, where those top schools in the Big Ten, and I'm not necessarily even talking like Ohio State, but I'm Michigan State, Purdue, guys that win conference regular season, win conference tournaments. They don't recruit the question mark athletes the way that the other Power 6 conferences, because we include the Big East here because, frankly, they're a better basketball conference than some of the other Power 5s. They don't – like, if you have question marks and you can play, you can go play at UConn. You can go play at Texas. You don't get to go play at Purdue because they're not interested. They have to win 25 games in the regular season. They don't have time for you to get out there and play during the year and find your footing. And then you get to the tournament, and it's a bunch of guys that you didn't want during the recruiting cycle that are giving you the business. And that's why they're so vulnerable. Is athlete to athlete, it's the worst out of all Power 6 conferences, I think, just from a pure athleticism standpoint. And then sometimes you got to be able to throw the system out the window. And no Big Ten school besides Izzo really is able to do that. And part of the reason he can do that is because he's the only guy around that keeps dudes for 3-4 seasons. His guards have been here 4 times. They know the vibes. Whereas Purdue, it's like a bunch of unathletic freshman guards that can't shoot. That's your bailout plan. That is never, ever going to work.
Yeah, and Iowa, obviously, their defense isn't good enough. I think Fran McCaffrey stinks. I actually dislike him, like, as a person. I think he's a douchebag. So every time he loses, I pop a bottle of champagne like the Miami Dolphins do when everybody doesn't go undefeated. Like, it's great.
The opposite of their football team, too. The
100%.
exact opposite.
It's ridiculous. A thing that surprised me, Tyson, is there's only 2 Big 12 teams left, Kansas State and Texas. And we talked about that conference this year, like, they're the best. They're the best. I think over the course of the season, in the regular season, they probably were. But does that mean that we looked at those teams and they're playing each other, we're like, man, this is just a great conference. They keep beating each other. It's like, well, maybe the conference isn't very good.
Well, I think that's kind of a tough one. Because I think that if you just roll the ball out on a random Tuesday afternoon, TCU can beat anybody in the country. But when you get into these kind of formats and stuff like that, that's when they start going down. But I still think, like, from top to bottom, the Big 12 has middle teams that could go beat Kentucky on any night, beat Tennessee on any night. They can play with each other. Whereas in the Big 10, like, we see it early in the year with the Big 10 Challenge. And then if they do well, it's because we say that the other conference was weak. And if they do poorly, then we go see. But if they do well, then the whole season we're like, I don't really believe these guys. And then the tournament comes and they do poorly, and then we all say, "See, told you." But the Big 12 doesn't get that same backlash. But I think it's because, like, Penn State was really good this year. Penn State on a neutral is an underdog to everybody left in the field, and I don't even think that they should be lumped in. Well, except for Princeton, but I don't think they should be lumped in with the rest of the Big Ten because some of these teams, like Penn State's first time here in a decade, and they did well for themselves. Some of these teams, we're doing this every season, man. It's getting old watching Matt Painter lose to. It's almost going to be a shock next year when he beats a 14.
Yeah, I know. It's like, man, you got to question it when you write that in. That's for sure. And then kind of other things as I'm looking through the bracket, how we have left in the Sweet 16 as we kind of just go through everything that happened over the weekend. Two mid majors, FAU, San Diego State made it to the Sweet 16, and then one Cinderella, Princeton. The rest are your powers, right? Your Houston's, Alabama was a wagon this year. UCLA, Gonzaga, Michigan State. They're not necessarily power, but they're here in March. Like they're a staple.
Nobody's surprised.
Nobody surprised. UConn, who everybody expected for a long time. It seems like Danny Hurley got over the hump. I think he's done a great job this tournament, just coaching wise, how he wanted to match things up. Miami, your boy, Larinaga, back-to-back Sweet 16 appearances for them. Xavier, Sean Miller's back.
He's so lucky.
Three Big East teams. They should have blown it against Kennesaw.
The luckiest call of the tournament, I think. And I thought the officiating so far has been like worse than in the regular season, which is pretty funny because college basketball probably has the least consistent refereeing. But it's like the Tennessee Duke game. That was basically just like we watched somebody get mugged in broad daylight for 40 minutes and nothing happened. Some of these, there's whistles every 30 seconds. But Gene Steratore getting on the fucking television broadcast, and not once this whole tournament has he said the refs made a mistake. It's crazy. Like the dude's getting his arm grabbed, pulled down on camera. We can see it, and he pops up and goes, "Well, from that angle, actually," and it doesn't matter. We're all seeing it in slow motion. Like I don't want to hear that. I want to hear results, man.
Yeah, and so obviously we picked Duke in our preview that they were going to be the national champions for us. And they ran into a bad matchup with Tennessee. And I think when we looked at it, Tennessee's offense was just not, we didn't think could compete with Duke. The only way that Tennessee was going to win that game is if they were able to get away with what they got away with. And what is that, you ask? Oh, they just legitimately fouled every single time and made the refs, hey, call this. And the refs didn't do it.
Man.
They didn't do it. It was crazy. And then so I was texting Tyson because that was the second game of the day. San Diego State bullied Furman. Like their defense was just a vice grip, and Furman couldn't get off shots. I think that was extremely expected there. And I'm like, okay, there's still ticky-tack fouls that have been called. You've seen a ton of emphasis on not being able to bully the ball handler. The arm bar, things like that.
That's what they said they were trying to stop. They said that was like a whole thing all year.
And then we get into the Duke game, and Tennessee is, I'm not kidding, I'm not exaggerating, fouling every single time down the court. It was ridiculous. So this is a team in Tennessee that fouls just under 7 times a game. They were called for 11 fouls, 3 in the second half. And I know the narrative out there, man, Tennessee, Duke was soft. Duke just, Tennessee just punked them. Yeah, if you put on the football helmet and pads, which Tennessee did, yeah, it's gonna be hard to drive through contact there. Like, I don't know. It was extremely frustrating game to watch.
I think 9 out of 10 times Duke probably wins that game if they just roll it out and play. But it's March, and that's the one that happens. And Duke was on fire, and Roach looked good. Everything was kind of going according to our plan. But sometimes you just get bullied, and that's something that a veteran-laden team typically can kind of battle through. But when you have a bunch of new guys, you got a new coach, everybody – you don't want to say is learning as they go because it's Duke and they've been around, and Shire's won a ton of huge games as a player and a ton of huge games on sitting on the bench. But it's different when you're in that final seat. And I thought he did a good job, but they just didn't make shots, man. And Kentucky didn't make shots when they needed them yesterday. And that's we're seeing a changing of the guards. You mentioned it at the beginning, but it's almost like, who cares if you're a blue blood? Like, what does it matter? It doesn't, like, who cares? It's cool for fans. If there are teams out here that are coming out as a 16 and you're saying we can beat Purdue, and then you go beat Purdue, who's scared of North Carolina? Who's scared of Duke? Who's scared of UCLA? Might be a different story because they'll actually fight you in a back alley. But as far as blue bloods go, like, it means nothing anymore. Like, it used to be some aura, like, you didn't want to play Duke in the tournament because Duke always wins in the tournament. You didn't want to play Izzo in the tournament because he just finds a way to win. Well, now those are the bad Izzo teams. The good ones show up and they get who was the RJ Hunter, right? That was Michigan State a couple years ago?
No, he was Tennessee. Oh, who beat Michigan State? Yeah, RJ Hunter when he
Middle
fell
Tennessee
off
State, right? Yeah. And that was the last really, really good Michigan State team to come through. And like, nobody's ducking, man. And it's just a bunch of kids that want to play. And and everybody else kind of was like, "Oh, who cares about a COVID year?" But we're seeing it this year. We're
Yes.
seeing 23-year-old kids who are like, "You know what, dude? We've been through this battle with each other 120 times so far in our career. It's these guys' third time through." And that's why Princeton comes out here and puts the boots to Arizona and then dominates in the second round because they've played together enough.
Yeah, I think the COVID thing, the COVID year thing, it definitely helped the bottom, help these kind of smaller schools because they were able to get their guys back. I mean, let's be honest too. Miami, the last ACC team in here, they should have lost to Drake.
Yeah.
Like Drake should have won that game. They just couldn't hit a shot down the stretch and completely fell apart. Or we're talking about a conference, and the ACC doesn't have a single representative here. I think your point is right in regards to the blue bloods. Like it doesn't matter anymore because if you're going to a blue blood, it's probably because you're looking at the next level, either after 1 year or two. And it used to be you have your Alonzo Mournings, you have your Christian Leitners, you have your elite blue chip
Your
players
Grayson Allens even. It's not even
who
we don't even
stay
have to
for
go back
4.
that far. Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, they'll stay for 4 years, and like Tyler Hansbrough, North Carolina, my least favorite player ever, probably because he was there for 4 years. Honestly, because it was easy to not like him, and I'm sure the Carolina fans have their Duke guys that they hated, and that's just how it goes. But now it's how are you going to hate Filipowski? He's gone, probably.
Yeah. Grady
How are
Dick.
you going to hate Lively? Oh, he swatted my shot the 2 times I saw him. Well, he's in the NBA now. It's like
Yeah.
you don't build these up, and so there's not an aura of man. This guy's been killing it at Duke, or this guy's been killing it at UCLA. I mean, Jaime Jaquez is an exception. Tiger Campbell's an exception at UCLA. And that's why they've been so consistent. Yeah, Drew Timme at Gonzaga. I mean, these are the exceptions now. I mean, Alabama's a great team this year, Tyson. They're going to have like 3 kids that go immediately to the NBA. Are they going to be the same next year? Like, who knows? It's just like Baylor, Keontae George, awesome player. Flagler stayed, Cryer stayed 4 years. If they are gone, like, okay, I guess Baylor's in a rebuild again. Like, it's just the landscape of college basketball has changed. And I think you can see that in these tournaments. I think that's the microcosm that we can apply when like kind of viewing college basketball as a whole.
Yeah, and on the flip side is you have these kids who have gone through 3 years at, let's say, Florida Atlantic, and they're averaging 20 points, and they never get a shot to show anybody how good they actually are. So this is the first round is a big deal to everybody, but you're kidding yourself if you think that. I hate to keep picking on Purdue so we can switch, but you're kidding yourself if you didn't think Houston thought they were going to cakewalk through that first game, but they were in a dogfight with 10 minutes to go because somebody from somewhere decided none of you guys have ever given me any respect, and I don't actually care about Jamal Shear. Like, it's just a guy. I've been getting buckets on people over here for 4 years. Now the whole nation's going to find out, and it's amazing. And every single year we have these stories. It's just this year felt like more chaos through two rounds than I think people were prepared for. The whole season felt like it was going that way, but right before the tournament, we were all just like, man, it's going to be chalk again.
I know it's so funny. Like we had these notions in our head, like, gosh, this is going to be wide open there. Then we're like, I don't know. This is right down chalk. Like, oh, of course. Also, RJ Hunter, his shot beat Baylor, not
Baylor.
Michigan State. So we'll have to find the Michigan because I know which one you're talking about. And I think it was Jaren Jackson. He was on the team, I believe. At Michigan State, and I think there's another 5-star kid. There's like a couple of last times that Izzo's really recruited
Middle
true
Tennessee
5-stars.
State, number 15, beat Michigan State in the first round. So maybe they beat Baylor in the second round.
No, it's because he's Georgia State is RJ Hunter.
Oh,
yeah. So Middle Tennessee.
Yeah, it was Middle
I'm trying
Tennessee
to think who's on that team.
Wasn't
there's
it
an NBA guy on that one? But
Upshaw maybe.
That sounds about right.
I don't know. I can pull it up, but we're lazy.
I mean, what state this, state that? There's a ton of upsets. All right. Well, that's pretty much it in terms of like an overall view of this thing, Tyson. I mean, there's really not much else to say. Like I was like wanting to write down stuff from like the first round that I'm like, well, that's moot now because like that team lost and they had a crazy run but they're out and this like let's look ahead now because we're going to do a
well before we do that I want to ask you what's the highest seeded team, and let's take Purdue off the table here because that's too easy, but who surprised you the most of the top seeds going down? Which one like was truly shocking?
Truly shocking. I mean, probably Arizona to Princeton. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, is it that shocking the way they played late down the stretch? No, but the talent mismatch that they had over Princeton and to kind of just be lackadaisical for the entire game was no excuse. And just the way they played. I mean, Princeton didn't even play good, and they
Yeah.
beat them. Like, they did not shoot well,
Yeah,
and they beat Arizona. That was inexcusable.
I think that's probably got to be the answer. The only thing that's coming to my head is I was shocked in a different way that Iowa State did Iowa State things, and then people
Oh,
were like, "Oh, come on! Not how's this happening? This happens every
40
year."
points.
Yes, I mean a little over a point a minute, which is pretty good. But yeah, I mean that was brutal, and that's one of those teams that we were talking about from the Big 12 that um, some nights could beat anybody. Some nights can score 40 points on a bad team.
I'm going to do a ton more work going into next season too, because we had a good angle on coaches that underperform in this tournament. Like we highlighted uh, Matt Painter, Purdue, Fran McCaffrey from Iowa, Shaka Smart had, he won a game for the first time in 6 years in the first round, but then immediately lost the second round.
I had Rick
And
Barnes on there.
Rick Barnes, unfortunately, he had to beat Duke. I mean, I don't know. I think he was playing a different sport than everybody else in the tournament in that game, but hey, whatever. And of course, Sean Miller, Xavier. Now he's in the Sweet 16. So, and Danny Hurley, Sweet 16 as well. So, kind of said it kind of happened for the coaches that we called out, and then the other ones kind of proved us wrong a bit. But I did see there are some metrics that Ken Palm had put out, and if you're not following Ken Palm on social media, Ken Pomeroy, his metrics and just like the history of these certain teams, if you're not ranked and what your expectations are preseason going in, you're only given about one win per year. And Purdue didn't get that, and Marquette got the one. And so I'm intrigued to dive into that after the year, and I think we're going to put together something for the next tournament, Tyson, that's going to do us pretty well. But other than that, anything finalized you want to say on this before we just do an early preview of the Sweet 16?
Shout out Tobin Anderson. I've never heard a human being, and I talk fast, but I've never heard somebody talk as fast as he does. Man, he starts a sentence and it's done. Like as soon as the first syllable of the first word comes out of his mouth, he's on to something else.
Let's get into Sweet 16 early preview here. Now in the South region, this is going to be played in Louisville. Alabama's taking on SDSU. Alabama opened a 6.5-point favorite. They're all the way up to 7.5 in some spots. Creighton taking on Princeton. Creighton opened, I think, as a 10.5, 10-point favorite, down to 9.5, which is pretty surprising. Let's just start there and move our way through. What do you expect of the Alabama SDSU game?
I think that San Diego State doesn't get quite enough credit for what they've done over the first two rounds because beating Furman on its face isn't all that impressive. The way they did it was like 100% a San Diego State basketball game. Like when you watch them play, you cannot mistake them for anybody else in the country. When they turn things up on defense, and they're going to make it tough for Bama to score, and Bama's dudes have to show up and actually score because that's kind of something that's gone under the radar so far because they've just scored 100 points on the last couple of teams they played. So who cares who's getting the buckets? South Dakota State or San Diego State makes you work, and they're deeper than anybody Alabama's probably will have played all season. They're just not athletic enough. But as the tournament goes on, like St. Mary's was super fun for a half, and then UConn just remembered, like, oh yeah, we can jump 40 inches in the air. And I think as the tournament goes on, and these kind of big dogs see one or two types like this, it becomes a lot easier to deal with. But I think at 7.5, I'm inclined to look at San Diego State, but first half under, baby.
Yeah, death, taxes, and first half unders in the tournament. I think San Diego State's going to make it tough on Alabama's offense. Brandon Miller hasn't played great so far, but Alabama has a good defense too, and San Diego State does not have a very good offense. I'm looking at the under, I think, full game right now. I think this is going to be a rock fight and legitimately could be like a 2-possession, 1-possession game at the end, and somebody's going to have to hit a big shot. And San Diego State, they've been hitting big shots all season. I know many people don't watch Mountain West ball, but they're pretty clutch. And then as far as the Creighton-Princeton game goes, I expect McDermott to put together a game plan that Arizona did not do, which is just hammer the inside with Ryan Kalkbrenner and then just don't turn it over with your guards. That's how you beat Princeton. Guard the 3, hammer them on the inside, and just don't take care of the basketball, and you're gonna win the game. So I like Princeton in that one. I don't know by that number, but I expect Princeton to be moving on to the Elite Eight.
Princeton or Creighton?
Creighton. I'm sorry.
I was like, wow, that's a
No,
bold take
Creighton.
to
They're
just
my
kind of
guys.
slide in there. I'm going with Creighton as well. It's really fun. It'd be sweet if Princeton were to win, but on the flip side, in kind of the grand scheme of things, like McDermott's, what is he, a Final Four away from being way closer to Gonzaga than people think Creighton is? Like they might, if they make a Final Four run and then come in here next year as a 3 seed, then all of a sudden, like the secret's been out, but I think that people still aren't all the way caught up on, like, Creighton plays NBA light on the way that they try to play on offense, where everyone else is still running the same motion schemes that you can see on instructional videos from the 50s. So I like Creighton there, but Princeton's so damn fundamental that, like, you got to be really good to beat them. And, like, they're not going to do anything that's going to impress you as you watch, but you're going to look up and it's going to be 40-40 at some point.
Moving to the Midwest, this will be played in Kansas City. We have the number 1 seed Houston Cougars taking on Miami. Houston 6.5-point favorites as of now. Let me see what they opened up as. Missing it. 6.5. So pretty much staying the same. Miami's a high-flying offense. Houston can be, but their offense hasn't showed up in this tournament. Quite honestly, they're lucky that they're here. Auburn put on a clinic on how not to play in the second half and win basketball games. Like, that was ugly. Missing every free throw. They were horrible from the field. Like, that was gross. Hard to watch. Classic Bruce Pearl down the stretch.
Yep.
And then Xavier takes on Texas. 3.5-point favorites right now, Texas is. Up to 4 at some places as well. Now, I don't know. It's hard for me to look at these games. I'm going to have to dive into this more, and we'll definitely have a stronger opinion on our podcast coming up later in the week where we really in-depth break this down. But, man, this has been a hard region for me to handicap.
Yeah, it's been tough, but it makes it a little easier when you realize that Texas has Dylan DeSue and nobody else in the country has him playing. Because when it comes to March Madness, man, I'm looking for give a shit factor. And I've been saying it all year. Like, this kid goes and goes and goes. So that makes Texas my favorite to come out of there. But this one ended up more along the lines of, if you just filled it in by, like, common sense, this is the only kind of quadrant that you might end up with the 4 teams that you expected to be sitting there.
Down in the West, in Vegas, Arkansas, who beat Kansas, takes on UConn, who's been extremely good so far in the tournament. UConn right now.
Isn't it Kansas now that Arkansas won?
I think it is. Or Arkansas or Kansas.
They won,
right?
so they have the right. Yeah.
The battle of how to pronounce it, and it's Wu Pig Sui, baby. UConn opened up as a 4-point favorite. It's down to 3.5, which I think is interesting. UCLA Gonzaga. UCLA is a 2.5-point favorite right now on FanDuel. This opened as a pick'em. And I know a lot of people are favoring Gonzaga right now because of the injuries to UCLA. They're not playing tomorrow, folks. Like, they're playing on Thursday. Like, they got time to rest and heal. David Singletary, he rolled his ankle. Everybody thought, this could be bad because it looked bad. He said he's going to be good to go. He broke his foot last year and knows what that feels like. He's going to be ready to rock. I like UCLA in that game. Gonzaga, their defense is a sieve. UCLA is going to be able to take advantage of that, and then UCLA is going to make it hard for Gonzaga to score. Also, a little handicapping note here, too. UCLA played in the T-Mobile Center in their conference tournament. Gonzaga did not. They were in Vegas, but not in this arena. UCLA knows the sightlines. It's a little fun fact there.
I love it. I have to see UCLA versus UConn in this tournament.
Oh, man.
That's something that I feel like we'd be robbed if I don't get a chance to watch that. I want to watch how UCLA deals with Sonogo and kind of him deciding, like, I'm the best post player left in the tournament. I'm going to go get 20 and 10 a game. He's been really good, but it's been interesting to watch how they manufacture his touches and how he has to score. He scores, and you forget this when you're watching so much NBA basketball, but, like, he looks a lot closer to a throwback big as far as the way he scores on offense versus how Drew Timme can score or how Jaime Hawkins chooses to score. And Hawkins isn't a big, but he'll go down in the post. But that's a game I have to see because I think UCLA is just on this is absolutely Mick Cronin when you look at this team. Like, they want to fight you. and they don't actually care about the basketball being played. They'll figure that out later. But they're tone setters, man, 1 through 10. And I think that they're kind of sitting pretty here. Gonzaga will be tough, and if they can win that game, then whoever they play next will obviously be tough. But it's a bunch of guys who aren't really ready for a fight, and I think that that helps UCLA tremendously. And that's kind of where I've been at with the West this entire time.
I would not be shocked if Gonzaga beats UCLA. I will put that out there. Gonzaga is playing really good basketball right now, and they have been down the stretch. But I just don't know if there's that guy. Like last time when Gonzaga beat UCLA, they had that guy, man. They had Jalen Suggs, like a bona fide NBA
And
guy.
he hit that shot.
Pick. Yeah, so UCLA this time has that guy. Like there's good players on Gonzaga. There's a great one on UCLA, and his name's Jaime Jaquez. Let's finish off in the East, which will be played in my backyard here, Tyson. Well, not necessarily. I guess I got to go across the bridge to Madison Square Garden. Barclays Center will be right in my backyard, but they're in the Garden. Izzo returns, baby. Izzo returns to the Garden. They take on Kansas State, who, quite frankly, have been awesome this season.
I have no idea how they're still here.
They got good guards, and Keontae Johnson hit shots.
It's amazing. I mean, they should have been out rebounded by 130.
I think they did get rebounded by 130.
And then they come out and win, man. They just hit big shots, and talk about a group that wants to fight you.
Michigan State opened as a 1-point favorite, up to 1.5, 2 points in spots, which is intriguing. Yeah, very interesting there. And then FAU, mid-major galore, baby, taking on Tennessee. Tennessee currently 4.5-point favorites. Opened at 4. I've seen it up to 5.5 at certain spots. I actually think FAU is a live dog in this situation. They're older, they're experienced. Let me put it this blunt. Tennessee's not going to get away with what they got away with against Duke 2 games in a row. Like there's going to be if you watch the rest of the games and watch that Duke game, the difference that game was officiated from all the others was night and day. So Tennessee's going to get the fouls called on them, and I don't think they're going to be able to shoot as well and as luckily as they did against Duke in this game against FAU, who quite honestly has not played a very good tournament right now. Their potential is much higher than this. I'm looking at FAU plus the points. I might even take a money line.
Oh, I think you have to. At this point, it's not often that you get to them in San Diego State where you get two kind of FAU is totally a mid-major. I think the Mountain West is better than people give it credit for regular season-wise, but you get two teams of this caliber who are going to be underdogs against people's favorites teams left in the tournament. So I think you have to take them. They score enough and they play together enough to win this game. It's just when you get down to the nitty-gritty of the tournament from the Sweet 16 on, just for the Sweet 16, if it's a Cinderella, give me the athletes. Like FAU didn't have to play. Not that they would have had to play athletes against Purdue, but Farley Dickinson is way different than anybody they're going to see from here on out. Memphis, to be honest, is way different. And we love Penny Hardaway. What the hell are you doing, brother? You can't be throwing the water bottle and freaking out at the refs, and you probably should have been granted that timeout. You shouldn't have been in that situation. The game should have been put away a minute and a half before that. So not great by him. It'd be interesting, but, man, I'm cheering for him. I think it would be awesome if we could get 2 30-win lesser than schools to play in the Elite Eight.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And then as far as the Michigan State, Kansas State goes, I'm going to have to think about this one. I really do. I have to look into this because Michigan State and Kansas State both feel like they're overperforming right now. And it's like, which one's going to regress? Do I trust the coach and Izzo, who's been here before, or Tang, who's had an unbelievable season and has gotten these guys to play? Good. Like, it's going to be interesting. So I'm going to have to dive in on that, and we will go through everything later in this week. I think probably Wednesday or Tuesday. I'm not sure, Tyson. We'll have to figure this thing out.
Figure it out
for our schedule. But we'll have this all previewed out, ready to rock for you, so that by the time Thursday comes around, you'll know our thoughts, and we'll be able to get that out to you guys. I'm excited though, man. Sweet 16, always great, always good basketball, especially when you kind of get down to the nitty gritty like this.
What's the biggest lesson betting-wise you've learned over the first 2 rounds?
That I did a bad job at live betting this year. Like I just could not figure it out.
I mean, it was a tough live bet market though, because things change so quickly in the NCAA tournament that if you're not in right away, then you miss the window, and then you're in at worse value or you're just like, if you thought Marquette was going to win down 6, then you realistically should probably think they're going to win when they're down 9, but you already missed it because your stream's
Right.
30 seconds behind and they came down, hit a 3, and the whole thing switches. I learned guards are now, if it's guards versus bigs, take guards. College basketball, I felt like for 100 years was the other way around. Give me the bigs. Over the last couple of years, we've seen the switch, but Michigan State's not here if it's still a bigs dominated game. Kansas State's not here if it's still going through the bigs.
Yeah.
I think the guards showed up, man, and the NBA has been like that for a decade. But college basketball is finally, I think, at the same spot.
Yeah, I like that. That's a good thought. Hopefully, I can do a better job betting. I got to do a recap in our chalkboard app for the weekend. Tyson, tell them where they can find all of our early picks as well.
It is in the chalkboard app. The group name is the Roundtable. You can find it on the App Store, Google Play, wherever you download apps. I think I was up like a unit and a half or whatever through the first couple of days, which was looking pretty shaky there until I got bailed out yesterday. But we were crushing our early day plays in the app. Brad got hooked a couple times, but I think other than that, we were pretty much straight winners across the board for the early portion. We didn't close out probably as well as we would have liked to, but that's the game, man. And now we got some more coming. We got the NFL draft noise coming. We have Brad almost hit it. Was it 5,000, 50,001? What was your NASCAR future?
Oh, 5,000 plus 5,000. So,
that would have been
right
nice.
there.
But anything you can think of is in the chalkboard app. Group name is the Roundtable. We had a good UFC weekend. We've had 3 or 4 of those in a row. So
yeah,
if you get in there and tail, then we're doing all right.
Usman got robbed. I was having to argue with people on Twitter. People are like, "What?" I'm like, "Dude, I'm sorry. Leg kicks shouldn't count as much as getting hit in the head. Like that. Just
you have a problem with authority, man."
I guess so. In the meantime, like, subscribe, and share the show. Like I said, if you're watching on YouTube, give us a like, give us a comment. That really helps us drive engagement and so other people can find us. And if you're listening to us in podcast form, send us a review. It helps us climb the charts, helps us become more discoverable as well. Instagram is at _ the Roundtable Pod _ our TikTok handle is the same. And you can always send us a tweet over at TRT _ pod. We appreciate you guys listening as always. We'll be back with more content on the NCAA tournament as we've alluded to, but also NFL Draft Dive. We got another edition coming up. We've been doing the work. We're grinding. We're excited for the draft. We will speak with you guys then. Peace.